Hi, I'm Carolyn Doughty, and I'm going to do this video on how to repair and fix your baby when it first comes out of the paw. Usually you've got some fixing to do. Often a seam along the back, sometimes some bubbles, sometimes some just little things to fill in. I've got two babies that they need quite a bit of repairing doing to them. They're not babies I poured. We actually had them poured, and I'm actually doing the fixing of them. So I thought, well, I'll show these because they've got quite a lot to show of how to do it. Now, what I've got here is some Platzil gel. It's a platinum silicone. The babies are poured in platinum silicone. They're poured in our own special blend of mallow silicone, which is made for us. Now, it's a base of Ecoflex, but it's a lot softer because we like our babies to be really soft. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but we like them like that. I love the babies feeling squishy and cuddly, and that's how we make them. So basically our babies are quite soft. If you're using Ecoflex 20, it won't be quite as soft, but and you may not have quite as many fixes to do, because the softer the silicone, the tendency is that they're going to be more fixes to do. So these silicones, as most of them do, come in either tins or tubs. Platzil is the same softness as Ecoflex 30. It's a sure hardness of 00030, which is very similar to the softness of a baby. You can use other platinum silicones. I use Platzil a lot because it's nice and soft, but also because it cures very quickly, and I'm not a very patient person. I don't want to spend 4 hours waiting for a baby's layer to paint to cure. You can use obviously Ecoflex to paint with, because that's probably the silicone you've poured in. You can use dragon skin. You can use Psycho paint. Now, if my throat's funny, it's because I've had a sore throat and I think my voice is going actually. Now, Psycho paint is a paint that most people use for painting with, but I prefer to use Platzil to start with. I'll do the first few layers in Platzil, and then I'll do Psycho paint on the last layer, for the simple reason that Psycho paint is tougher. It's I'm going to show you at some point the hardnesses of silicone, how they vary, but Psycho paint is really quite tough. This one that I've just pulled out of a jar is it's Platzil cured, and as you can see, it's really jelly-like. It's squishy, it's thinned down. That changes the feel of things as well. If you thin them down, sometimes they go a bit softer. So this is actually Platzil thinned down, and as you can see, it's lovely and soft. It makes it a little bit more susceptible to damage. It's perfectly fine for on the doll, but that's why I use Psycho paint for the final seal and matting layer, because it's just a teeny bit tougher, as I think it's like painting a skin over the whole top of it. So what I'm going to do, I can't work with these tubs as they are, so what I do is I decant them into, I'm going to mark these A and B, because it's important obviously that you don't mix them. If you mix A and B or put the wrong lid on the wrong one, it'll start to cure, and you don't want that. Well, that's not gonna happen right now because I can't find a pen, but I will do at some point. I'll put that there and that there. This is A and this is B. It's very easy when you're pouring into a tub to pour A in, have a chat with somebody, and then pour A in again. We've all done it, and then you mix it and you paint it on the baby and it doesn't cure. I've done it, and you feel so stupid when you do it, and it messes up the baby because you have to then wipe it off with a cloth and thinner, because there's no way it's going to cure. So what I do is I always put A on the left and B on the right, and I always pour A in first and then B. That way, if I pour one in and then I forget about what I'm doing and I think, what on earth have I just done, I know I've always poured A in first. It's just something I do, so I'm going to do A first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill these little squeezy bottles with the flat silk, so that I can use them. I can just decant a small amount each time. So what I'm going to do is literally get a syringe and draw it up and pour it into the bottle. Obviously the syringes need to be latex free. We have actually got some syringes for sale in our Making Silicone Babies group website shop. So if you want to get some, you can just buy a couple of syringes in there. Now this takes about 4 lots, and so does the bee obviously in the other pot. So what I'm going to do is do this off camera because nobody wants to sit and watch me pull silicone into a syringe. And I'll be back. One thing I forgot to mention is obviously don't use the same syringe for A and B. If you keep them completely separated, you can reuse them, because obviously the syringe, the B inside this syringe isn't going to cure unless it goes near A. So as long as you keep them completely separately, you can keep them, but you would write A and B on them so you know which are which. The B, funnily enough, is usually a lot thicker than the A silicone. Well, not a lot, but a little bit thicker than the A. That's not important. I don't even know why I'm telling you. So I'm on B now. So again, I'm going to switch the video off while I'm doing this. Okay, that's done. Put the lids on. All these little accessories and tools we are now selling on our little website. So if you certainly if you live in the UK, we do ship worldwide. So but if you don't live in the UK, you may find it's better to find a supplier closer to your home. But what I'm going to do, you'll find that silicone mostly, this one doesn't, well actually it does. Part A usually comes in yellow or with a yellow stripe on, and part B comes with a blue stripe. So I got some insulation tape, and I actually label my A and B with tape sometimes if you just want to be able to see really quickly what you've got. So that's B. There we are. So we've got A and B, and what I do now is I get a beaker and stand those upside down in the beaker so that they're always ready to squirt. So that's my Platsil ready. I would normally label the bottle, the beaker, what type of silicone it is as well. So that, just so that I know, I'm just going to pop these lids back on. Storing silicone, it has got a shelf life. I've never had silicone go off on me. But if you're not ready to pour your baby or not ready to paint your baby, there's no point buying it a few months ahead of time. You might as well wait until you're ready to paint it. So that's my Platsil. I've got a beaker here of, well, I use odorless, the SAM odorless silicone solvent. You can use, well, for cleaning your brushes, you can just use ordinary odourless solvent or even just white spirit, although obviously there's a smell to it. If you use You can use Bob Ross thinner, but I actually, well, I use this for my cleaning the brushes as well as for mixing. I use this for mixing. It is specifically made for silicone, and it has no smell to it at all, and it's very, very safe to use. Obviously, just be careful when you're using any products. Always read the technical data, always read the safety data. All the technical data and safety data for the products I'm using, all the information about them are on the website, and I've listed all the products I use, because people keep saying to me, oh, I want to know what you're using, what product you're using, and I don't always think to say when I'm using it. I just fire away, carry on using it, and people are sitting there thinking, what's that product she's using? So as I say, it's all on the website now, along with links to the tutorials, and also information about the products. And as I say, we're selling a lot of the products as well on the website, so it's like a one-stop shop. Right, I'm going to go and get the baby, and we can get started. Right, as I said, I've got 2 babies I'm going to be working on today. Please excuse the sort of like all the bits and pieces of the baby. Clearly it's a doll. It's not a real baby, and if you're offended by her bits and pieces, well, this is not the video for you. Don't do it deliberately, but it's the way it ends up. So we're going to fix her up. She has a lot of problems. I'm going to go and get the lamp so we can see a bit better. Right, this baby is my latest one. This is literally the first couple of babies out of the mould, and I haven't seen her properly yet, and I'm really, really excited about her, getting her sorted. As I say, I didn't pour this baby, but there are quite a few things we have to do to her before she's ready to paint. She's just out of the mould. As you can see, she's got sort of tears and lots of things need doing. She has, well, both babies are very similar. They both have problems with their right hand, so the person who poured them has given me a couple of extra arms, so we'll be able to do transplants, and also an extra right ear for one of them. Not sure which one it is. I think it's for the other one. But there's quite a lot of patching up needs to be done on her. So what I'm going to do is position the camera a little bit better and get started. Right, some absolutely essential things you'll need when you're fixing your baby is a pair of scissors, very, very fine scissors. These are, I think they're optical scissors. They're very, very easy to use, very sharp for getting like little bits and pieces out, and a pair of tweezers are very handy as well. The first thing I'm going to do is cut the pour spout off. This is where the silicone's been poured in, and they nearly always have a pour spout. The only time they wouldn't would be if they had a ball jointed head that was separate, in which case they would be poured from the neck up. So I'm just going to cut that off, and then obviously that will need fixing. So the top of the head there is, I'm just going to get a cushion to hold the head up. So the top of the head, what I'm going to do is trim it round, trim so that it might look clumsy doing it with these scissors, but they're actually very sharp. So that there's nothing sticking up. That's an important thing. It doesn't matter if there's a bit, like a bit of a, what I call a ditch, a bit going down, because that will be filled by the silicone. But we don't want anything sticking up, even a teeny bit, because that's going to be more. It's going to be more visible. This baby's been washed thoroughly. When they first come out of the mould, they've got residue of mould release on them, which is the spray you spray the inside of the mould with, and when you pour the silicone in, it picks up some of that that wax. So when the baby first comes out, she needs to be completely washed, first in hot soapy water, wiped down with thinners. Takes quite a time. We can't just dunk her in the bath and there she goes, because the release is waxy. You see, that's you can see there there's a bit of a tear. It's not a problem at all. We can sort that. So I'm just cutting away at anything that's sticking up. This seam is sticking up here. I use a slightly bigger scissors. I should have some in between size, I know that. I'm not overly worried how neat I do this. So the seam generally goes all the way down the back of the head, from the paw spout down the back, down the spine. As I say, where it doesn't meet completely together, you get a ridge, and I don't want a ridge, and I don't want a line that's just a straight line either, because it draws the eye to it. Anything that's straight, just a straight line down the back, it's more visible than something jaggedy. Okay, I'm not going to do more down the back than that. I can do that when I turn her over. So what I'm going to do is mix up a little bit of silicone. I'm going to use my mixing pot. Right, so this is a silicone. No, it isn't. This is silicone that I put in the squeezy pots earlier. So I just literally squeeze out a similar amount of each. Okay, I get one of my little twizzle sticks and mix the two together. As I say, this is Platsil gel. So it's once it's mixed together, it starts to cure, and it's cured. It cures in about half an hour, I think, possibly quicker in this warm weather. So we don't mess around with it. Right, as the pigment, I've got the actual pigment that was used with Effie when she was poured somewhere. Oh, there it is. I've just put a little bit in a pot. We can talk about pigments a little bit later, but I'm just going to get a teeny bit of this pigment. And what I tend to do is, if I'm mixing paint to patch up a paw, I tend to put less pigment in it, so it's a teeny bit more transparent than the actual paw, because it makes it more invisible. There we are, that's about right. I'm just going to apply this with a flat brush. Doesn't matter really what kind of brush you use at this stage, and I'm just going to literally paint over the whole thing very thinly as a first coat. Where it was like that, I'm going to let the paint trickle into the seam, into the little tear, and let it close naturally, so that will disappear basically. So I'm just going to give it a bit of a paint over. Just a first coat. And then when it's painted over, I'm going to get some of the thinner, which I've actually got in here, so I can just use this. Actually, I know, I think I'll pour it into one of my little pots. Some of this silicone thinner, and I'm just going to brush over gently. You can use a fan brush for this, I will do a little bit later, but this is only the first coat. And basically this will ensure that you've got no edges when it's painted over. This is only first coat, I don't expect it to look great after this one coat. And that's all we're going to do with her with that for now. Go on to the next bit. Now, as you can see, her eyes, she's got a teeny little skin tag there. So this is where the tweezers come in. I'm going to just grab it and cut it off. There we are, it's gone. Now this ear, this was the one that was problematic, but I don't think I've got a spare ear for this one. So I'm just taking off, what's happened is there's like two skins, and the top skin is very thin, and there's like a bubble, and then there's the bottom part which is which is just the ear. So what I'm going to do is start to build up this back so that it's back in the same position as it was before, same shape as it was when it was sculpted. So I'm almost going to be sculpting with silicone. So again, I'm going to just start by painting silicone onto it as a kind of base. Just get the feel for it. Same here, it's got a bit of a tear. I'm going to literally just paint over it, letting the silicone seep into the tear. Let it relax, and then using my I think I'll use a fan brush for this one. Love these fan brushes, they're so nice and gentle. So just use the fan brush just to glide over with the thinner. Just glide over it, and there we go. What are we going to do next? Right, there's a little bit of pink that's come from the mould in the little tear here. So I'm just going to get some tweezers and pull that out. If I can find where I've put them. Somewhere. Oh dear. I'm always losing things. I'm so busy trying to make sure everything's in camera that I'm losing things. I can't find them. Oh, this is crazy. Had them a second ago, didn't I? Anyway, we'll start with this anyway. A hand. Right. I'm going to zoom in on this. We've got a teeny bit, it's not bad this hand, but we've got a teeny bit of webbing. So what I'm going to do is use these scissors and just snip away at anything that shouldn't be there. I could do with those tweezers. Using these scissors, which are so brilliant. We sell these scissors on the website as well, if anybody can't get hold of any. Snipping away at the little bits so that they're nice and smooth. There's a bit of a tear there, you see that, so I'm just going to add a little bit of silicone. And let it cure naturally in the shape in the place it's supposed to be. A little, there we are. Not bad actually. That hand's pretty good. Don't know what that is. I think it might be from the mould. Right, that's okay really. Unless I've got it on my fingers. That happens sometimes. I think, where's all this colour coming from? And then I realise it's on my fingers. There was a tiny little bubble there. So what we do, get a little bit of the silicone and fill the bottle. Sometimes it bubbles up again. These are gorgeous, these little applicators. I've got these what I call the mottling applicators, and the little tiny ones. They're so great for using with silicone, those and these are tiny ones. Again, they're on the we got them in the shop. Really useful. Right, I do need the tweezers now, so I'm going to go and have a look for them. A bit of a crease there. Just going to pop a bit of silicone on it, and then with the fan brush dipped in thinner, just smooth it away so it doesn't show. Okay. Right, I'm just going to go and have a look for my tweezers. Okay, I have them. They were on my knee, obviously. Right. This side of the baby, this is where I needed the tweezers, wasn't it? There's some some of the colour from the mould stuck to the silicone here. This happens more on the first couple of pours, then you tend to not get it so much. Anything on the mould that was sticking out, a little bit of roughness or whatever, and you just get that a couple of times. Right, what I'm going to do is use my little scissors to trim up the hand. This hand isn't too bad. I think it's the hand on the other baby that is worse than this one. But we have two hands to transplant if need be. I know why we're having trouble with the hands. It's because I've did the fingers curved. So it's not that easy to get the silicone into it, and also it's not that easy to get the hand out of the mould, especially with this thinner, this softer silicone. To be honest, you probably won't find you've got as many things to patch up as this, especially if you're using Ecoflex. I don't recommend you start using a softer silicone until you've had a lot of experience. I certainly wouldn't use it until you've been pouring for a couple of years, to be honest. You need that experience. You need to know how silicone feels, standard softness, before you start messing around with thinner, with softer silicone, because it makes it a lot more difficult to pour. A lot more difficult, which is why I never do tutorials on using softer silicone. If I do a pouring tutorial, it will be using my own silicone, but I don't talk about how to get it softer. As I say, we tend to use our own mallow silicone. So what I'm doing here, I'm just trimming away all the little bits, all the roughness. Clearly the person who poured this really struggled with the hand. You can see it's because it's soft, it's been tugged at. Poor little girl. She's been through the walls with her little hand, but when we finish with it, it will be as good as new, won't it, sweetie? This sculpt of mine, Effie, I've called her. Well, in my opinion, she's the best, my best yet. Mainly because she's the sculpt. I think any artist has sort of like the perfect piece of art that they want to end up with. A painter wants to paint the perfect picture. A sculptor wants to sculpt the perfect whatever it is they're sculpting. And I've done quite a few different sculpts now, and I love all of them. I really do. But there was one I had in my mind. I wanted to get a baby who was totally peaceful looking, and I knew what I wanted, but I decided I was going to go for it with this one, and I did. I managed to get exactly what I wanted from her. I wanted that sort of peaceful, beautiful baby sleeping, and I can't put into words how pleased with her I am. She's perfect to me. She's perfect for what I wanted. Not every baby is everybody's cup of tea, but she was the perfect one for me. And I haven't painted her yet. I don't know what she looks like when she's finished. What I'm doing here is just starting to patch up with silicone the little bits and pieces. This is not thin silicone. This is neat Platsil. Just just sort of starting to kind of fill in the little bits that are being torn. So as I was saying, yeah, so basically I called her Effie. Now, my grandmother, her birth name was Euphemia, and it's a Scottish name. Her grandmother was Scottish, and her grandmother was called Euphemia as well. Now, my grandmother always hated the name. She hated it, you know, as we all tend to hate our own names. She hated it. But she was called Effie. Everyone called her Effie. So she used to be quite embarrassed to sort of give her full name, Euphemia. Everybody knew her as Effie. And I wanted to give this baby a special name for me, that was special to me. So I named her Effie, which I think is a really sweet name for a baby, even though, as I say, my grandmother was born in 1906. But Effie, I think, is lovely. And so here's little Effie. So I am really, really excited about painting her. I'm going to be painting her, the first one of her, on video, and I just can't wait. I really can't. Right, I'm going to just leave that. I've just patched up quite a few parts of it. I'm going to move on, just do bits and pieces. Right, this, again, we've got a couple of tears on this side. I'll just a few little tears there in the leg, so I'm just going to fill those up. My Platsil is starting to cure, so I can't use it for much longer, so I'm just going to pop it in that little tear there, that little hole and that little tear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put her in the oven, because the warmer the atmosphere, the faster silicone will cure. It's the same for any of the platinum silicones. I don't suggest that you go sticking them in a really hot oven, but what I do is I put the oven on its more or less its lowest setting, which is about 110, which is just like a very warm day in summer, isn't it? Let's face it. And do it for about 5 minutes, and it just manages to cure it completely, so that you can work over an area. Obviously you'd wait until it cooled down. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop her in the oven, and then I'm going to mix up some fresh silicone and carry on. Okay, right, I'm back. She's out the oven, she's cooled, ready for her next few bits of patching up. The Platsil that I'd poured before, mixed before, as you can see, it's cured completely. Even though she's been in the oven, the actual Platsil has cured anyway in the tub. Right, while I'm actually thinking about it, I'm just going to take the bubble. Nearly always inside the nostril is a bubble of silicone, like a skin tag. So I'm just popping that out while I'm looking at it. So the next thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start building up the ear. Both of the babies that were poured by this person, the ears have real problems, but the other one, it's even worse than this one. So what I'm going to do is they poured me an extra ear that I can stick on, transplant, but I'm going to use it for the other baby because I've only got one ear here, so I'm going to use it for the other one, and I'm going to build this one up. So what I'm going to do, I've patched up a teeny bit, I've got my Platsil mixed, and I'm going to add literally just one drop of 5X, which is a thixotropic 1 drop. 5X is a thickener basically. It's a thixotropic, which means that basically as you mix it in, it makes the silicone a bit thicker and it makes it less likely to run. Trouble with silicone when you're painting with it, it's like painting with honey. You can't get a fine line with it because it spreads, but Thixo stops it from spreading and makes it thicker. But if you just add a teeny bit of it, it stops it from spreading without getting too thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up the inside of the ears here, almost sculpting it. So I'm going to use the brush I was using earlier, the flat, and I'm just going to pop silicone inside there where it's going to stay. I don't know if you can see. There we are. It's a bit easier to see. So this slightly thickened silicone is going in there. Again, I'm using the wetness of the thinner to smooth over it with the wet brush. The aim at the moment really is to just make it not visible by the eye. Obviously when it's painted it's going to be even less visible, but we just don't want the eye seeing it. You'll never get a silicone baby unless it's sort of manufactured or something. You very rarely will get a pore that is perfect. Maybe if it's a harder silicone you might get a near perfect pore or even a perfect pore if it's like a Ecoflex 30 or Ecoflex 20 even, but you very rarely get a perfect pore from a softer baby, and I prefer that. You know, I prefer the fact that it's never going to be perfect, but it's soft and it's squishy and it's gorgeous, aren't you? Hey, she's soft and squishy and gorgeous. So I'm quite happy with that really. I'm going to, while I've got the thickened silicone mixed, I'm going to just do the top of the head there again. Now this is where the poor spout was. So slightly zoom out a bit. So what I'm going to do is get the thickened silicone and paint over the area. Make sure it's well covered, no bubbles. I'll probably need one or more layers after this. I'm going to wipe the brush. Actually, now I'm going to use the fan brush. Again, wet in the silicone. Just drag it across while it's wet, and you get an almost invisible line, an almost invisible sort of end to your painting. Obviously this is going to be underneath the hair, but we still want it to look good. Anyway, we may want it bald, you never know. Alright, I may do one more coat after that, but that's not bad. It's not very visible at all. Right, I think I'm probably going to put her in the oven and get those areas firmed up before I do any more because I don't want to go and stick my finger in it because it's such a nice finish. Okay, right, I'm just going to do the final coat on the poor spout. I'm just mixing up some black sill. I'll put a drop of colour in. And one thing to remember when you're using thickener, thick sew, is I find it takes a little bit longer to cure when it's got a thick sew in. In fact, if you put too much thickener in, it will actually, you'll have a real problem getting it to cure. That's the one thing you have to watch out for. If you put too much thickener in it, whether it's flat sill when you're doing this, whether it's making a mould or whatever. So just be careful about pouring too much in. So we've just got a drop in here as before. So I'm just going to paint over the work we've done already. Watch it doesn't drip. At the moment I'm using these pads underneath. They're really good because they are absorbent to take out any drips, but at the same time as being having this base, this sort of plastic bottom bit. They are actually nappy pads, or whatever you call them. They're puppy pads, nappy pads, bed pads for people who need that protection, say on their bed or whatever. But I find them brilliant for this, actually, for different reasons. They're lint free, so you don't get bits of fluff or anything from them. Right, I'm just, with my fan brush, I'm just going over the whole thing. It's not too bad. So we're looking for sort of smoothing over but not dragging the paint. So you have to make sure the fan brush is really wet, just to gloss over the top of it. I think we've done quite a good job. Okay. Now where do we want to do? Little girl. Should we go over your ear now? I'm going to do another coat on the ear. It's not done too badly, but it's not looking fantastic. Just need a little bit over that, and then we're just going to use the fan brush to smooth it over. Not too bad. Right, got a few little tears on the tummy, so I'm just going to patch those up a little bit. So I'm just parting them, let the silicone go into the crack and then paint over it. Smooth over it. Right. There's a little seam there and a little excess silicone there. So I'm just going to trim that and fill the seam. Not seam, the tear. Right. Okay, I'm going to cure this bit and then we'll come back to her. Okay, I'm happy with the front. I've just turned her over. I don't like laying them on their front. I just feel maybe I should have done the back first. I don't really like laying their face on. I mean, I could mat her face a little bit, just sort of put some, I think I will actually just put some little matting powder on her front. This matting powder is wonderful. Both the silicone velvet and the sand matting powder can be painted over quite happily. So I think actually I'm going to do that because they stick, especially at the moment where she's just come out the mould. So she's just raw silicone at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some matting powder. If I can find it, and just give her a bit of a brush over the front, not to be permanent, but just so that when I put her on the front, her face and her tummy doesn't sort of stick to the board, because she is quite sticky, and that's normal. I'll go find some powder, I think. Okay, just a little bit, just like talcum. Just use it like talcum powder, just on the bits that will touch the board. There we are. Okay. Now, hopefully when she goes face down, there we are, that's much better. Right, so on her back what we have is a seam going all the way down the back. We've got quite a dent there where the bottom of the seam. We've got a bubble here, and then the seam obviously goes up into the head. We've got a few little slits like we had on the other side, but on the whole it's not. And we have to do something with the back of the knee, which is fine, and there. And the same with this one. You often get that with the softer silicones, but once it's patched up it'll be absolutely fine. Oh, and there's something on the other side as well. Okay, so we're going to start with the seam. So what I need to do is, there's a little ridge going all the way down, and you might think it looks pretty good now, and it's going to look worse when I start hacking away at it, but trust me, it's better to do that than to leave it as a line with only a little bit of a ridge. It's better to have more of a, to cut away more of it, just for the sake of it. There we are. You see, I'm cutting into the silicone here, and you probably think, well, that's worse than it was when it started, but when we actually come to patch it up, it'll look better. Nothing worse than a straight ridge for patching up. There we are, that'll do. Okay. Same here. There we are. Right, I'm just going to paint over this bit first of all with pure Platzel. That's a little bit of the mould. Again, the mould obviously is pink on the bit next to the baby, and it's just picked up some of the mould colour there. Not from the pigment, but just a tiny slither of actual silicone from the mould. As I say, that does happen sometimes on the first 1 or 2 pours, but usually that's all. Right, I'll mix up a little bit of Platzel. Use this just a tub I used earlier, which is cured. Obviously with these tubs, most of the time you can reuse them, so you just, instead of washing them out or anything, just let them cure, and then pull the silicone out in one piece or several pieces. Don't drop them all over your baby though. Right. Zoom back out for a bit. Alright, so I'm just going to add Platzel. Such small amounts you don't have to weigh them, and do it by eye, or count the numbers. Well, as you squeeze it, just count to 10 or something if it's a larger amount. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. It can be a few percent out. Right, teeny bit of colour. I find them more transparent if you do it more or less transparent with just a teeny bit of the tint in. You're more likely to get an invisible covering if you put it quite a bit of pigment in, and as much as in the pour. The correction becomes more obvious for some reason. Right. I'm just going to use it neat. Just paint it over. Right. Tweezers really are the girl's best friend when it comes to silicone. Make sure there are no little air bubbles. And then I'm just going to smooth it out using a fan brush dipped in the solvent. May not even need a thickened layer this. See how we go. Okay, I'm going to let that cure. I'm going to probably put it in the oven for a fast cure, and I'll be back. Okay, the next job is tackling the under the knees. I think what I'm going to do is just put some silicone on in the crease and then put it in the position it's going to be and smooth it, and that way it'll stay in that position and it'll look smooth and it'll hold it. So we have some of this silicone still left over that was already thickened. It's starting to gel, so I need to work fairly quickly. So I'm going to just pop it over the area where the crease is. And smooth it with my wet brush like that. And I'm going to do the other side the same. The other side's worse. That's worse. So again, if there's enough left in here and it's not too, I think it's becoming too thick, I'm just going to get some more Platzo. Won't be a sec. Okay, I've made some more. I'm going to apply it with my little applicator. Does it go down into the crease so no bubbles in there? Now I'm going to get my fan brush, again dipped in solvent, and try and smooth it as much as possible. There we are. It's not too bad. Might need another go. Probably will need another go before we can put her up for painting. So that's her knees done. What else can I do while I'm doing this? I think I might tackle her shoulders. This is one of the reasons why I use soft Platzo and not something like Psycho Paint for patching up, because if I filled a hole like this with a harder silicone, you'd be able to feel a hard bump, whereas this won't. You won't be able to see or feel this once it's painted. I think that's okay. Just occasionally you'll fill a hole and cure it, and then the next thing there's a bubble in it. You don't realise when you've done it that there was a bubble in it. I'm definitely going to have to do this air bubble at this side again. Okay, I'm going to go and pop her in the oven again, and then we're getting there really, nearly there. Okay. Right, just looking at the little foot. It seems okay on first looking at it, but there's a split there, and that needs to be patched up a bit, and that there. So I think what I'll do is use plain Platsil, almost like a glue, just to close those. So I'm going to put some down here. There, and oops. In there. Just kind of leave that to find its own level, really. A little bit of there. That should be okay once it's cured. The other side's not too bad. No, it's not too bad at all, really. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a very final coat along the seam line, and then I think this one is more or less done then. So, this little girl, so I'm going to add some thick soap to the Platsil, just a teeny bit, one drop, there it goes. And this is the worst part here, this little bit where that was a bit of a dent. Just make sure that there's no air bubbles in the silicone, make it worse than it already was. There we are. That's as good as it's going to be. Obviously I'll smooth it out with my thinner brush, or should I say brush with thinner on it. This is where I had it on a piece of tissue and the tissue stuck to it before I was using the pads, I don't know what you call them. So that side's pretty good. Just need a little bit here. Make it pretty. Right, and now we need a fan brush. you get to know, as you do several babies from the same mould, you get to know where the problem areas are going to be, because most of the problems are due to the mould. So wherever the areas were where I've had to do some patching up will probably be the same area on each of the babies that are pulled from that mould. So really the first one is very much a test pour to see where the problem areas are going to be. So I think I'm going to pop her in the oven, and then I'll bring her out and show you her all ready to paint. So here she is, my first Effie, all patched up and ready to paint. There we are, little girlie. She's beautiful. So I'll be able to start painting her soon. I'm going to patch up her sister first. I love it when they sit like that. Not that they could sit like that as a newborn, I'm sure, but anyway. Yeah, so she's all ready to go. She's I'm going to be painting her on video, so she'll be in the tutorial section. But I think she's looking gorgeous. So there we are, little girl, my baby, my beautiful baby. Little sleeps now. Little sleeps. Little squishy girl. See how squishy she is. Really squishy. She's just really squishy. I love doing that, seeing the back. She'll be even more wrinkly when I get her skin layers on. But she's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I know I made her, but she's definitely one of my favourites so far. They're all lovely, but I absolutely adore her, as you can tell. Can't wait to see her painted. I absolutely can't wait. But I have to, because we can't do her yet. We've got to wait until her sister's patched up, and she's got another sister as well who I might do at the same time, who was the first one out of the mould. The first one was, she wasn't quite the right softness. She wasn't as soft as I wanted her. She was softer than most, but not quite right, so I set her aside. Maybe I'll paint her up for myself. I don't normally keep my own babies, but I might do on this occasion. So anyway, I'll show you on the next baby. I won't go through all the different seaming and the pour spout or anything with the next one, but what I will do is I'll show you how I do a hand transplant. The other one, the hand is just a little bit worse than this one, and the ear that I patched up is a little bit worse, so I'll be transplanting it with the extra ear that's been given to me with the pour, and transplanting the hand with the extra hand. So yeah, so I'll see you soon. Okay. Right, I have now got the other baby that I'm going to be fixing up like I did with the first one. So I won't show you all the things again that I've already shown you, but this one, the hand, as you can see, is a lot worse than the other one. So what I'm going to do is do a hand transplant. Now the person who poured them, he gave me an extra arm. He gave me extra 2 arms, neither of which are perfect either. This one's probably the better of the 2. So I'm going to use this one, but I'm going to patch this up before I actually do the transplant, which sounds really weird. But so I'm going to mix some Platsil and put a teeny bit of thickener in it, I think, and then I'm just going to smooth over those fingers so that they look perfect, ready for painting, because it's easier to do it before I actually stick them on the baby, on the body. If you're just using Ecoflex and you're pouring yourself, you probably won't have as many flaws as this baby has had, but it's a good example for you of how to fix up a baby. But as I say, you probably never have as many flaws as this in your baby. One of the reasons is because of the softness. It's always almost impossible to pour and pull them out of the mould without any flaws at all. But as you can see, they are easy to patch up. Not the end of the world. I'm going to use a smaller brush for this, just an ordinary round brush. So basically, this is what is happening. They're a bit split. They've got little. That one's. As you can see, they're really precarious. So if I can just patch them up and then let them cure, hopefully. Oh, I've forgotten to put Platsil in. Thivex, sorry. Tiny bit in. I put too much in, I think. I put 2 drops in, I didn't really want that. Okay. Right. I'm just going to more or less sculpt silicone back into place. Again, using the solvent to smooth it. So again, I'm dipping the brush into solvent till it's wet and just smoothing over where I've added the silicone so that it's a smooth finish. And again, it'll be so worthwhile when we come to actually painting the hand, not to have to have a nice smooth finger. Somebody said to me recently, I went to a doll show, and somebody said, I love your videos, but you always stick your head in the way at the interesting bits. Just as I'm about to think, oh right, how does she do that? Your bloody head goes in the way and all I can see is the back of your head. So apologies for that. Just that it's really difficult to concentrate on what I'm doing and concentrate on what the video can see at the same time. So and hold it in a position that the video can see, where it's maybe not necessarily the position you would want. I would want to hold it. Oops. Where are my little snippy scissors? Oh, there they are. These are so gorgeous, these little scissors. I've got a few of these scissors in the shop actually, if anyone can't get hold of any. There you are. They're like surgical scissors, but they're so good because you only need one hand for them. You don't need a lot of concentration, or you have to concentrate as the actual snip, not getting your fingers in and out of them. You can hear the sound of snoring. It's the dog again. She likes to be in the same room as me, and if I start talking to the video, she thinks I'm talking to her, so she either gets very excited or she just goes off to sleep thinking, well, she's off again. When you put silicone over the top, to a degree you do lose a bit of the detail, but some detail you just don't want, as in the tears and things. Right, I think that's probably not too bad. Better than it was anyway. It's certainly better than the one that is being replaced, the hand that's being replaced. There we are. Okay. That heavy breathing, it's not me. For once, it's a dog. Right, I'm just going to go and cure this in the oven. When I cure in the oven, I put on very low. I think I've told you this already, but just in case I haven't. Put on very low, just like a warm summer's day, so sort of about 110, the lowest your oven will go really. And I pop it in for about 5 minutes, and it's enough just to fast cure, wet the area you've done, and then once it's cooled you can carry on. Otherwise you'd have to wait about an hour or so for it to cure with Platsil, or longer if you're using something like Ecoflex. Right. Okay, so that's going in the oven for a few minutes. Okay. Right, now that's curing, I'm going to do the ear. Now, obviously it's going to fit like that, so I'm going to just trim this so that it's the right size and shape. So I'm just going to take off where it's been poured, a bit of the actual head there. I obviously missed my calling, I should have been a surgeon. Right, So what I'm going to do is literally slice off the ear using a scalpel. If I can find one. Okay, so I'm using a sharp scalpel. Just be really careful with the scalpel, because they're very, very sharp, obviously. This one could do with a new blade in it, actually. That'd be alright for what I need it to do. Just more or less, I'm not forcing it, I'm just more or less stroking it along the edge. Just try and remove it in as straight a line as I can, which may not be happening. Right, one ear gone. Right, so what we want to do is fit this ear in the same place, like that. Okay, so I'm going to just apply some silicone to it. I'm going to mix some fresh. I can use Platsil, or I could use just about any silicone for this. I could use Silpoxy even, which is a silicone adhesive. I'm just going to use my Platsil because I've got this out. I don't have to colour this because it's obviously going between the two pieces of silicone, but I'm going to a teeny bit just in case any of it oozes out. It won't be visible to the eye. Just a teeny bit. Right. Trying to get the light so you can see what's happening. Okay, I'm going to brush the glue onto the ear part, spare ear. And just fit it there. Should be about right. Right, while it's curing, I'm going to pin it in place with routing needles so that it doesn't move. So I'm going to just pop one there and pop one there. And there, so it doesn't move. And I'm going to fill the middle part with a teeny bit of silicone because it's there's a bit of a gap between the new ear and the old ear. So what I'm going to do is just let it form a little pool in there, puddle, so that it's completely invisible then. And that will do for now. For that. Right, I'll go and get the spare arm out of the oven. Right, that's the best I can do with this hand for the time being. So I'm going to transplant it onto the arm, and then I can always do some patching up later, but for now that'll do. I want to go over it one more time, but I won't bother with that on camera because you've seen a lot of me going over things. So I'm going to get that little hair off, yeah. So what I'm going to do is transplant that hand onto this hand. Obviously it's the same hand, it's the same, from the same mould, so it's going to fit perfectly. So what I do is I find a crease, so that if you do it within a sort of a crease line, it's less visible, and just cut off the old hand. Not for the faint-hearted. So I'm going to do the same with this, cut it exactly the same place, hopefully. And if I get it in the same place, it should fit perfectly. It won't do, because you can never get it exactly right, but it's as near as it's going to get. It's not bad actually. Okay, so similar to the other one, I'm going to dab some silicone on it, except I'm going to make some fresh silicone because the silicone I just made has cured. So this is the wonderful thing about these, putting them in these dropper bottles. You can just do a teeny bit at a time, or you can do quite a lot at a time, and you don't have to mess around with big buckets, big tubs, pouring them out, pouring too much out. It's a lot more accurate. Pop a little bit of the flesh colour in, just in case it seeps out at the edges. Just a teeny bit. Again, the colour should be more transparent than the actual pigment, the actual pour, that way. And also, if you can't match the colour exactly, if you say buy a blank baby from somebody and you want to mix up, you know, do some repair work, they obviously should be repaired before they come. But if you wanted to do something and they haven't sent you a sample of the silicone and you can't get the exact colour, if you get a similar colour and paint it over and mix it, you know, quite transparent, then it will be a lot. It'll just blend in a lot better. Right. So what we need is some more pins. What would I do with my pins? Oops. These routing pins are ideal for this, if I can find them. Oh, there's one. I've got some more. So, yeah, I tend to, when a routing needle becomes dull, or I can't use it, I've been using it a while and I decide to change it, I usually use 2 or 3 different needles for for one baby. I change it whether I feel it becomes dull or not. So the old ones, there's nothing wrong with them, so I tend to put them on one side, and they're really handy for this. So I'm just pinning the 2 together so that they fit around the wrist for when they cure. And then when it's cured, I can paint around the ridge. Just make sure that there's no gap, and trim it. So I'm just going to pop a teeny bit more silicone in there. There we are. I'm going to let that cure. So I'm going to let those cure, and then that's the hand and the ear transplanted. Okay. Right, she's out the oven, and we can take the pins out now. Right, so her ear is now completely stuck on, and her hand, ooh, I've just got all the pins out. Her hand is looking pretty good. There's just the odd little crease around the where I've repaired it, so what I'll do is when I come to do all the rest of the fixes on her, I'll just blend that in. It's pretty good. It's absolutely stuck as tight as anything. That's as strong as any of the other parts of her, which is pretty strong really. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to finish doing the fixes on her off camera, because most of the fixes are the same as the ones in the other Effie who I did on camera, and then I will come back when I'm ready to start painting them, and yeah, that's the exciting bit. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye bye.